A good yontif to everybody. A very special day. Today is Yud Dalet Kislev, the 14th day of the month of Kislev. It is the day that our dear Rebbe and Rebbetzin, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, got married 96 years ago in 1928. Now, I don't remember back then. I wasn't there, but it was some festive, amazing wedding. Most importantly, as the Rebbe said, that this is the day that I am connected to you and you are connected to me. Very awesome day. Because, of course, that made him the son-in-law of the previous Rebbe, marrying his second daughter. And eventually, it would mean the Rebbe taking the Nisias, the leadership, after his father-in-law passed away in 1950. And of course, leading us to this very day, and going to lead us out of exile, to bring the final redemption of Mashiach now. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichron Kadeshim, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. I'm going to give just a brief overview of yesterday's teaching, is that we find that there are teachings in the Torah, laws in the Torah, that never occurred or can't occur. So then, of course, the question's, why would the teachings be there? Especially we know that the word Torah comes from the word Horah. It's a lesson in our lives. Well, if this law can't occur or never did occur, then, why is it on the law books? So the Alter Rebbe explains that everything in this world evolves from the spiritual world. The laws, too, as they pertain down here, devolve from the spiritual, which means something could be in the spiritual world, but never devolve into the physical world. It could remain in the spiritual world. Does that take away from the truth of it? Not at all. The fact that it doesn't reflect itself or, devolve into a reality that we perceive with the naked eye, right, is like one of the laws is Ben Sodom murder, the wayward, rebellious son, right, that gets ultimately executed. Well, in the Talmud, there's a question if it ever happened, because the details on how and what the circumstance is for it to occur are, almost impossible. Different laws about having the wrong intention for something when it comes to a sacrifice, also something that may never occur. So what's the point of it? The point is that by learning it in the spiritual realm, you're bringing a refinement. You may not bring a refinement in the physical realm because it's not a law that pertains in the physical reality of this world, but it is in the spiritual reality. And therefore, it's part of the eternal teachings. And the truth is, everything that we learn, you can learn it like Chumash and Rashi's would just learn on the simple level, but then you also have to understand it on the hinted, homiletic, and mystical level. Why? Why do you have to understand it on all levels? Because all levels are the truth. And ultimately, We need to, because otherwise our soul comes back, it gets reincarnated, and if it doesn't learn Torah, amongst the mitzvahs also to fulfill, if it doesn't fulfill um, all areas. Wow. Because the teachings are not just practical guide to life, but the mystical or the other dimensions of Torah are a reality on a different spiritual plane. And the truth is, we live on all those planes at the same time. We might more attune to the physical plane, but the spiritual reality is there at the same time. That's a brief, the fifth essay. We go now into the sixth essay. So it says essay, very intriguing. We're going to only begin it. But King David was triumphant in getting the Ark of the Covenant to be returned from the Philistines. And he was extremely joyous. Extremely joyous. He forgot something, though. He had it placed, the Ark of the Covenant, on a wagon to be transported back, to the Jewish people. That was, again, captured by the Philistines. And for the moment, he forgot the law. What's the law? That the Ark of the Covenant is to be carried. Has two poles, four people to carry it, and not to be taken by wagon. He forgot. Commenting on this, our sages in the Talmud teach us that King David, you forgot, this was a punishment. Imagine thinking of forgetting something as a punishment, right? Well, it feels punishing when we forget something that's important to us, right? Well, this is important to King David, no doubt. And he forgot. What was it a punishment? It was a punishment because he referred to the Torah as a song. It was a song for him in a place of terror. And therefore he got punished. Now, in the Zohar, right? That's the storyline, okay? And we're going to see, and you're going to have to come back tomorrow to get the full story, okay? But we will only start. The Zohar, we find an expression, the praise of the Torah and its song. So the Torah is a hymn and a song to God. So what's he getting punished for? And why particularly this law he forgets? Nothing is by chance. We're going to see everything so specific, so exact. Again, not today. So let us understand. What's the praise of God when a particular object is forbidden or permitted? Right? The praise of the Torah. We sing. Well, what's the praise of that? Right. So similar idea is in Tehillim. King David sings the song, "How great are your works rather. Oh God, your thoughts are very deep." So it seems to be a little backwards over here. Thoughts come before work, right? You think about something and that brings you to do something, right? But the verse here says the opposite. It says, great are your works, God. And then comes how deep your thoughts are. Why would it be that way? Okay. So we got a bunch of questions here. So it's known that all of the worlds, right, this physical world, but also the spiritual worlds, right, are completely dependent on the meticulous performance of a single mitzvah. Nothing new under the sun, except something that's over the sun. And what's that? The mitzvah that we do. When we do a mitzvah, we create a union above between the male, female of the divine that creates offspring. It produces something. And what is that? A new divine light that enters into this world. Now, but that is dependent on the precision and how we do something. So it gives an example, in the times of the Holy Temple, if after an offering was slaughtered and you're taking the blood to put on the altar, which every detail is so precise, if you took the container in your left hand, invalid. It's invalid. You have to take it in your right hand. And we're going to go into the explanation over here of all of this, the meaning of blood, the meaning of putting blood on the altar. It all has very deep, profound spiritual idea. But here we're just a simple little thing. You took it in your left hand. You made a mistake. It's not about pointing a finger and blaming anybody, but it invalidates, right? Or let's say you were holding the vessel and you need to blow your nose. Oh, and you had a Kleenex and you took that Kleenex and you were holding the vessel with it. So there's a separation between your hand and the vessel. You invalidated the service, right? Where's that come, right? Or he gives another example, tefillin. Tefillin, the phylacteries we put on the head, reveal divine intelligence. When you do the mitzvah, right? You draw down divinity. So you draw down divinity when you took the vessel with the blood in it in the right hand, because you did it properly. If the tefillin are properly kosher tefillin, you draw down divine intellect, right? But if you didn't do it properly, right, you don't. Right. So with this, that's our actions, and that's the actions that God gives us to do. Now, understanding that that action is not good, from there we understand the profound depth of God's thought. What's his thought? The Torah. Right? That's his thought. That's his supreme thought. That we learn the law from maybe a little added letter or missing something or adding something. We learn mounds of Jewish law from it. In other words, the precision in God's depth of thought, right, tells us, oh, you can only take the vessel in the right hand. The tefillin have to be, between your eyes, not on your forehead, between your eyes, and all of those details. All those details are coming from the Torah. So from the actions of the mitzvah that we need to do, we can appreciate the depth of thought of the Torah teachings because that's where it comes from. Meaning, the power of God's light that's going to be introduced into this world through the mitzvah that we do, the act that we do, and the profundity of that thought of God, which is his teachings of Torah, are so, what's the word I'm looking for? So tenuous. Like, because we learn it from such a precision in the divine thought, the divine teachings, the divine Torah of God. It's like, how tenuous hair is that comes from the head, right? So sensitive is the head, it comes now hair that issues from the brain. But the metaphor over here is the brain of God, the thought of God, right? The depth of God's intelligence reflects itself in something so tenuous like a letter Vav in the Torah that adds the understanding of what the halacha is, or missing the Vav, right? Or that the letter is spelled totafot without the Vav, right? That teaches us the law of God, right? So it seems like a hair is, well, what's a hair? No, that hair is coming, the tenuous, seemingly insignificance of a hair, right? So seemingly the insignificance of a letter in the Torah, right? It's not. It's a reflection of the brain of God, of the intelligence of God. Wow. Which then leads to the action that we do, that if we do the action a little off, we don't get from the intelligence of the divine, we don't draw that into this world. That's pretty heavy duty, would you say?
Yeah.
In other words, to appreciate that, I'll give you a metaphor too, because maybe this is a bit, you want to connect to someone who's really important to you, and you send them an email, right? And your intention is really to connect. And you're doing everything you can do to connect, right? So you wrote a beautiful email to this person and you sent it to God at Gmail.
Chabad.com.
At Chabad, yeah. God at Chabad.org, right? But you know what you did? You forgot the dot. And you just got Chabad.org, not Chabad.org. You left out the dot. All I left out was a stupid little dot, a little hair. Well, you don't make the connection. So that's the same idea over here. Is that all you did was your tefillin was like kind of like off to the side. They weren't between your eyes. Or you took the vessel in times of Holy Temple, you're a Kohen, and you took the vessel in your left hand. What's the big deal? Like, come on, get a life. No. If you didn't put .com and you just did, Chabad.org, you don't make a connection and you don't get connected. The same thing is with the mitzvah. You don't draw down the light of God and attach yourself and bring that infinite light of God into this world if you didn't do it in accordance to the way the tenuous letter of the law of the word would teach us, for example, right? This is what King David delighted over when he thought in his times of difficulty. Wow, God. Everything's dependent on, right? The Torah that you study, that you appreciate that this is the significance of Torah, that it is the life force of everything in this world. He was overjoyed contemplating this, that the world is nothing in comparison to the Torah that we study and the mitzvah that we do that brings the light of God and life into this world. That even a minor little detail in the Torah is a minor. That's gladdened his heart. For that, he got punished. Ooh. So be it that we should all appreciate that and be joyful over that. But for that, he got punished. Why? Tomorrow, we will find out. And the punishment is forgetfulness. Why forgetfulness? And why forgetfulness of a particular law of the ark that was put into the wagon, carried back, rather than on the shoulders of the Levites that would carry it. Psh. Folks, amazing stuff. Okay, I saw some questions here. Any questions, anybody?
I have two questions, but I don't know if you.
Hey, give me just 1 second. Let me just see if I. The question marks before. Oh, okay, 1 second. Does every letter of the Torah affect the universe? Absolutely. Well, I actually, it does. Every letter doesn't mean every letter we learn a law from. And that's the precision over here, that from a letter you can learn a complete law, and many laws, as a matter of fact. That's the focus over here. And that law means, so from the depth of that thought comes an action that I have to do. And that action that I do then will make it valid or invalid, the act, which means valid or invalid. If it's valid, means I make the connection. .com, .org, Chabad.org, you make the connection. And that brings then a light of God that I'm connected to and bring it down into this world. So that's specifically when it comes to, to the law, but there is, in learning Torah itself, but that's not the focus over here. A good question. Andrew, so any mitzvah done, not 100% accurate, does not harm in the world, there's more harm in the world than good. It's not about 100%. It's about, the way it needs to be done. So it may not be, again, let's say the tefillin are on your forehead or they're over here, right? You don't make the connection. Then it's like Chabad.org, not Chabad.org, right? So you won't get to where you want to go. So, in that respect, that's correct. Does it do more harm? I don't know if it does more harm.
Say a bracha in vain.
Hmm?
If you say a bracha in vain, you think you're doing it right, and then
Right. Okay, excellent. All right, go ahead.
okay. So first of all, it seems to be like a zero-sum game. Like either you're doing it or you're not doing it, right? But if this is all based on like biblical law, obviously, so that means like even if you're davening and you're not following it specifically, and you just like, because my understanding is that, like the sitter is like the recommended way we like connect him, but technically you're just obligated to like pray and have a connection. So even if you're just following it biblically, like for instance, like or with like kashrut, like like technically, I think it's like you could eat chicken with milk, for instance. So
I mean, biblically you could, not rabbinically.
not rabbinically,
But
yeah.
we follow Jewish law. We don't follow biblical law. We
Yeah,
follow Jewish
yeah.
law.
But if you're following just biblical law, for instance, you could still be doing a mitzvah even if it was going against
No.
rabbinic law. No? So that cuts off your connection to him too.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, because like following the
Because
sages.
part of biblical law is what the sages tell you need to follow.
Yeah,
So then you're not following biblical law if you're not following rabbinic law.
yeah, because you're going again. Okay, and then
Because biblical law tells us that we have to follow the
the
rabbinic law.
Okay, so you're cutting it off in that way.
Right.
But secondly,
The consequence may not be as severe, but the the disconnect is there.
the disconnect.
There's a disconnect,
Yeah.
and then there's a consequence of a disconnect. In a biblical, the consequence is greater than if it's a rabbinic disconnect.
Uh-huh. But there's still a consequence.
But it's still no, they're both a disconnect.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay.
And that you didn't accomplish to create that, to connect and bring the light down, is the same thing if it's rabbinic or biblical.
Okay. And then secondly, if let's say you're like putting on tefillin and you'll have all the intention in the world and you're really like, oh, I can't wait, I want to do this mitzvah, I want to connect to Hashem, like you're just 1,000% into it, and then your tefillin is like 1 centimeter off of what's like permitted halakhically, then like there's just Like the thought doesn't have merit, or just the
So we have to separate. We have to separate. First of all, we have to think Jewishly and not Western minded. Western
okay.
minded is like you know, we don't we play the blame game, and we want to, am I to blame? Am I going to be punished? Am I that? You didn't make the connection. What does that mean? So put on the film properly now.
Uh-huh.
Ah, you didn't do it before. Okay, whatever that was. And it's not about, what kind of blame you have. That's not the point over here. The point is that appreciate how the depths of God's thought. In one letter, we can have mounds of law, and therefore that dictates my action, that action now will be specific on how I can elicit the divine light in my life and into the world. That's the important thing. If you didn't do it properly, you're just off, and you have how God's going to look at you. Is he going to is he going to punish you? That's, first of all, not at all the point,
Uh-huh.
not at all the issue here. And again, we're thinking that way because that's a
Yeah.
Western mind, that the and which, I want to be blameless. I want to be in good stead. And okay, it could be that God
Yeah.
will look at you in good stead because you had everything perfect and you had everything, to do it the way God wanted, and then to do it for the sake of God and everything. And it could be that, but that's irrelevant to this point. The connection's not made. See, the problem with that is it's always thinking about me,
Mhm.
right? It's like it's always thinking about me rather than thinking about the relationship I have with God. God wants it this way, but yeah, but is God gonna is he is he really gonna really be upset with me with this now? So then it's really thinking about yourself rather than about the relationship. And if, here it's just speaking about the reality of that connection
Mhm.
that is lacking if we don't do it in the appropriate way. So we were lacking. Okay, so now you're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
fix it, and you gotta make sure the tefillin are straight. You're gonna make sure,
Yeah.
that you do the mitzvah in the way that God dictated in the Torah with his deep thoughts, if you will.
But I thought there was an aspect of like when you're thinking of a mitzvah and you're grappling with it in your mind, then you're like sort of like you're absorbing it, some like you're connecting to
That's in
it.
the Torah learning of it. We're talking about now doing the
Oh,
act
okay.
of it. We're talking about putting on your tefillin. So you
Okay.
can study about tefillin, right? And in that, because you absorb it in your mind and you comprehend it,
Yeah.
so then that's about God's wisdom that you are now, is part of your wisdom, right?
Yeah.
But here we're saying a different point. We're saying in the act of what we're doing,
Mhm.
right? That's where we're going with this.
Okay.
All right, folks. Reminder, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, we will have Torah studies tonight. And 8 p.m. we'll have Tanya Rabbi Community, TRC. So do please join us. I'm Rabbi Rani Fine, coming to you from Chabad, Zurich, and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Please join us for the Rambam as we begin, as we have begun our 12th book.